What's up everybody, my name's Felt and welcome back to another Final Fantasy XIV video. Today we're talking about Astrologian, the first healer I decided to level inside of Endwalker, and one that I think is insanely fun and really powerful right now. Though shield healing does seem to be a bit busted, that's something we can talk about later. This won't include combat, because I feel like it would be a little silly to include combat for a healer. But I'll explain, like, how your opener should generally run, and, how your priorities should align in it. So first of all, you should be spamming Malefic off cooldown. If you don't need to be healing, you should be hitting the button for Malefic, every single second. If your dot is not on the boss, hit your dot on the boss. If you have a card up, play your card on a DPS. If you have Minor Arcana to play, make sure you draw it. If it is a Lord of Crowns and a burst window is not coming up anytime soon, you can hold on to it for a little bit. It can sit there for up to 60 seconds before you can draw again. Anyways, so why not just hold it? Make sure you hit your star off cooldown, and make sure that you hit Divination probably by the 3rd or 4th GCD or so, as that's when everyone else is putting out their party buffs. Maybe a tad later, as it's only a 15 second in place of a 20-second buff, like a lot of other jobs. But overall, Astro's kind of free-flowing right now, and since Astro depends on other jobs' openers to play well, we kind of have to wait for other jobs to figure out what they think is optimal and best for Astro openers to be set in stone. I'd say hit a Malefic, play a card, hit a Malefic, weave Lightspeed to make it easier. Hit a Malefic, draw play card while hitting Malefic. Draw Arcana, make sure you've hit Divination somewhere in there. Play Arcana if it's a Lord of Crowns, save it if it's a Lady of Crowns. That'll make more sense later, I promise. And make sure your Earthly Star was down pre-pull. And use Astrodyne on 3 seals if possible. Alright, now that was a lot of words, and if you don't know what any of that means, that's fine. Let's start explaining. Let's start with the basics of Astrologian, the cards. So, you have 6 cards that you can draw. Balance, Arrow, Spear, Bowl, Ewer, Spire. And I phrased it like that on purpose because they will each be given to different members of your party. It's very simple. If you think it's a little confusing that there's all these names, it's very simple. If it has a blue outline, like this card, that will be given to a melee DPS. If it has a purple outline, like this card, that will be given to a ranged DPS, and that means physical or magical ranged. And you want to give it to the proper member because it'll be 6% if it's proper and 3% if it's not. It's not a huge deal or huge difference. It's 3%. However, that'll add up over the course of a fight. That's the basic of cards. The way that the card seals work is as you play your cards, if you're in combat, I forgot it only works in combat, I apologize. If you're in combat, you will gain seals. The seals coincide to this little thing on the top of the card, like that's a sun seal, that's a full moon seal, that's a crescent moon seal, and if you get one of each, you will activate a very strong version of Astrodyne. If you get less seals, it's okay, you'll just get a slightly weaker version of Astrodyne. You want to hunt for a 3-seal version of Astrodyne if you can, but most people say that if you get 2 different, that's perfectly acceptable. Buffing your damage and healing by 5%, while very nice and will help kill stuff faster, is not super important, whereas making sure to reduce spellcast time and recast time and restore your own MP can be very, very useful and powerful, especially inside of openers. Now, Astrodyne feels a bit weird right now, because you'll get one in your opener, because you'll have a card pre-pull, and then play 2 cards, and then you'll have Astrodyne. However, your next Astrodyne will come up around 90 seconds into the fight, which isn't a burst window for many jobs other than maybe Monk. But what you can do is you can save that Astrodyne into the 2-minute buff, the same with Lightspeed. It comes up at 90 seconds, but you can save it for the 2-minute window. You can use Astrodyne, Lightspeed, and Divination, all of the 2-minute window. You will have to be sitting on a card going into that 2-minute window, and you can essentially full play another Astrodyne at that point, which you could use back-to-back to fall under the rest of the party's buffs, or save for like the next 60-second burst window that's not a 2-minute burst, and use it then. It's a little free-flowing and freeform, and I'm personally not sure what the most optimal thing to do is, but right now what I've been doing is saving my 90-second astrodyne for the next 2-minute window consistently, and depending on how things have been heating up, I'll sometimes just use astrodyne for the MP regen if I need it for recovery, or just pop it at a 60-second window for some extra damage, if we have, say, a trick attack or something. So that's the gist of the normal cards and draws and astrodyne. One mechanic I forgot to make mention of is the fact that you can redraw. You can redraw once per card draw, so I drew an arrow. I can now redraw, got a balance, it's great. But now I can't redraw again. Draw a ewer, hit redraw, got a bulb, but now I can't redraw again. It's useful for hunting for the cards you want, but it can be a little frustrating because we used to have 3 redraws and now we only have 1, but it's not the end of the world. Let's talk about Minor Arcana, which is a totally new system right now. It used to be that if you got a card that you wanted to play, but didn't want to get the seal of, you could play it as a Minor Arcana, which gave a slightly higher damage buff at the quote-unquote cost, not giving you a seal. It could be really useful to be holding on to a perfect 3 seal div, or nowadays astrodyne, and then we'd still be able to play cards on people. Well, it's not the case anymore. And now divination is just a button you press, which is a little weird, which also gives Minor Arcana a completely new purpose. Now when you push the button, only works inside combat, you will draw one of 2 cards. A Lord of Crowns, which will just deal damage in 20 alms around you, which is the same potency as a Foul Malefic, with no drop-off, making it very powerful in dungeons. There's also Lady of Crowns, which is just a 400 potency cure, which is the same potency as your Helios, which can be very useful for just a spot heal. I personally think that if you draw a Lord of Crowns, you should almost be using it off cooldown, and if you draw a Lady of Crowns, you should sit on it till your next draw, in case you need it somewhere in the meantime. Because you can sit on the Minor Arcana until you need to draw a new one, with no downsides. So that's the cards. That's a lot, but hopefully that all made sense. Let's move on to your single target heals, what they're best for, and how I personally think to use them. So, your most basic things are Benefic and Benefic 1 and 2. They're just heals. You get Aspected Benefic, which gives a regen and a heal. It is also instant cast, which can be useful for movement or weaving other healing items. Those are your 3 basic ones. Out of the 3 of them, you should probably only be using Benefic 2 or Aspected Benefic. Benefic 1 is kind of low power and doesn't really do a lot anymore. And on top of that, if you're going to be using a faster and lower potency cure because they took a little bit of damage, but they're not, and they might die from an AoE soon, but you don't want to massively commit to a Benefic 2, you can hit an Aspected Benefic, which is an instant cast and move while doing it. You can use it as okay, tank's eating autos from a boss, I'm going to cast that while I'm moving into place for the next mechanic. It will probably overheal if you do that, though, and that's something you want to avoid, but it is an option. It's a great instant moving item. It can be good for just putting a regen on a tank who's just kind of eating boss autos the whole time. As for bigger heals, you have Essential Dignity, which is your big, bam, get healed button. It gets more powerful as your target gets lower, all the way up to 900 potency, if they're at 30% HP or less. It's very good for healing a tank up after a buster. But for before a buster, you have some really solid options now. You will now have 2 charges of this, but you have Celestial Intersection, which is a cure of 200 potency, and a shield of double the amount of HP restored. So essentially a 400 potency shield, which is really powerful. Exaltation exists as well, which is now almost an X-Cog for Astro. You put it on a tank before they get hit by something, time goes by, they'll get healed. It just also happens to include damage mitigation. Very powerful. Very nice. One of our cool new toys for the expansion. As for what else we got, we do have Earthly Star. This is just something you put down on cooldown for damage, honestly. The heal is just a nice bonus. And we also have Macrocosmos. Now, this gets a lot more value if you're using it in AoE. But it can be a really powerful tool in single target. I will go on a long tangent about that at the end of the video because it's our new capstone skill and it is very good. So, AoE healing now. I've talked about the single targets. That's what Essential Dignity's for, Celestial Intersection and Exaltation's for. Aspected Benefic, Benefic 2, sometimes Benefic 1. You want to avoid this button as much as possible. As you can see, it's down here next to my food on my hotbar, so I almost never hit that button. As for AoE healing, you have Celestial Opposition, which is just a great push the button, whole party gets a little heal, and then they get to tick for regen. Next you have Helios, which is just heal. As you can see, just heal button. You have Lady of Crowns, does the same thing, just on an instant cast, and it is an ability, so you don't play it on the cooldown, the global cooldown. You have Aspected Helios, which is a big heal with a regen on it, which is also very nice. You have Collective Unconscious, it's more of a MIT thing, but you can tap it, and people will, for a very short period of time, get the damage mitigation, but also get the regen, which is nice. Another great tool that Astro has for helping AoE healing is Horoscope. There's a button that you push, and as you can see, it'll go off for 200 potency right now, because it is just Horoscope. But if you cast Aspected Helios on it, it'll now turn into Horoscope Helios, which will now heal for more. So it can be really good to basically, you know a big hit's coming in, you hit Horoscope, and then you hit Aspected Helios to make sure everyone's nice and topped off and give them a regen. The hit will come in, and then after the hit, you can hit Horoscope again to proc that bigger potency cure. It can be very, very nice. It does apply with both Helios and Aspected Helios. Most people use it with Aspected. Aspected just feels like a stronger heal. Unless you're really needing a big chunky heal, most people would rather hit Aspected. It's not even that expensive. It's only 100 MP more than normal Helios, which is kind of wild to me. As for other buttons you get for AoE, Earthly Star applies there. Macrocosmos does apply there as well. That person got a fancy dragon. Don't know why they're running into the corner, though. I'm just doing this out in the open world, as you can see. And once again, live, see, my Psychon Bavois is selling. I can't help that. That's just part of it. More AoE buttons, though, involve Neutral Sect, which makes you heal better, so it can be really powerful if you need big AoE heals really fast. It'll also make your Aspected spells give a barrier. You ever played Astro before when it had Nocturnal Sect? It's the same thing. You're essentially giving yourselves barriers on your skills. Now, though, it'll give you a regen and a barrier. So, like, I push Neutral Sect, I cast Aspected Helios, I have a barrier and a regen. I cast Aspected Benefic, it gives a barrier and a regen. See, I can even demonstrate again there. Barrier and regen. It's very powerful, boosting your healing potency by a lot, as well as being able to give out both shields and regen simultaneously. Incredibly useful for when you're about to get hit by a big stack marker, or like a phase transition in certain boss fights. You can pop neutral, hit Horoscope, hit Aspected Helios, you'll have a regen and big shielding on top of you. That'll all be ready to go in case you get really hurt by the AoEs. And that's how you typically deal with those. Sorry, I had to swallow and didn't want to be loud into the mic. Like I said, these are all very live, these are all very unscripted. Hopefully you're learning from this. I do apologize that it's very long and rambly. I realize we're 13 minutes in, but I have one more thing to talk about before we're done, and that's our new capstone, Macrocosmos. So, this skill is absolutely nutty. It deals damage, the same power as your Phil Malefic. So it's not even a DPS loss to hit the button. It is a spell, so it'll be cast on the GCD like everything else. As you can see, it rolls on the GCD with everything else. So you'll press it and you'll deal damage. It both in single target and in AoE, so it can be used in both instances. Either in dungeons or in 8-man content like raids. It gives you a buff called Macrocosmos. I'm going to hit the button once here. It's a 3-minute cooldown, so I need to talk quickly. So you hit the button, bam, do your damage. Now you have Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos will restore HP based on the amount of damage that you have taken, all the way up to full HP, and it will never overheal you. And when the effect goes away, you will get healed for everything you got hit by. It has a base potency heal of 200, but it can full heal you from anything. I've used this thing in extreme trials and dungeons at this point, and seen its raw power. I've seen it take tanks that have 60,000 HP, 70,000 HP, from essentially like 10k, all the way to full in one go, one button press, because it just heals so much. Only 50% of the damage taken. But if you're healing them through it, to a degree, once it goes off at the end of everything, they'll have taken more than double their HP probably, especially considering mitigations and regens in place. So this can easily be a full heal to any job in the game. It can be incredibly powerful for multi-hit stack markers, Akmorn style, to where you cast it out at the beginning of the hit, you hit a regen halfway through, or just a standard heal halfway through to make sure no one dies, and then as the last hits are going out, you hit macrocosmos to proc its effect, and everyone gets full healed instantly, and it goes out very, very fast. It is very, very strong. So that's Astro. 15 minutes later, I've talked about all I wanted to talk about. This has been a very long video. I'm wearing my voice out, I think. But hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed all these notes. I don't think I'll be able to, like, put these into sections in the description. So just hopefully you found what you wanted. This person seems to really want to get in on the video. This is why I don't have people's names on. So they can't get in on these videos, you random person who's staring at me. But either way, thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out. Hope you liked the video, hope this was informative. Like, comment, subscribe, I guess, all that cool stuff. And I hope to catch you in the next one.